So inshallah, we're gonna be talking about hadith number 9, and the title of the hadith is Allah loves noble manners. So in it here, the Prophet ﷺ said, أحب الناس إلى الله أحسنهم خلقا. أحب الناس إلى الله أحسنهم خلقا. Very it's a short hadith, very few words. أحب الناس إلى الله. The most beloved of people to Allah are the people who have the best character. The most well-mannered are most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal. So if you want to know how to be close to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and how to be a beloved of Allah Azza wa Jal, you know that your task is to acquire the best of manners, to strive to get that. Because when you possess this, Allah Azza wa Jal loves you. And that tells us a lot about where we're at today and where we're supposed to be. Because there's a strong correlation, a connection between good manners and Iman. So the more Iman you have, the more your manners reflect that. They will be the best because your Iman is strong. And if your Iman sinks and dips, it will show itself in your manners. Right? So because of that strong correlation, when you look at the state of the Ummah today that is struggling in its manners, you understand that the cause of that struggle is that there is a deficiency in Iman. Right? There is a deficiency in Iman that brings on the deficiency in character. And if our Iman is not just simply by it, I mean a feeling that you have, or that I am close to Allah Azza wa Jal, but also a practice and knowledge. Because you could have a person who goes to the masjid, who prays, but does not understand good character. So they could lie, and they could cheat, and they could steal, not seeing the connection between the two. So when I say that when your Iman is strong and high, I mean completely. I mean in terms of what you believe, in what you do, and also your knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. So when that Iman is strong, then you will see it definitely reflected in that person's behavior, his attitude, how he deals with his neighbors and families and children and wife, all of them. But when Iman is not, then characters collapse. So we would not be, if we understand this hadith, we would not be in the state that we are today if we loved Allah Azza wa Jal and we knew who Allah is. Because if we loved Allah, we would love to be loved by Him, and then we understand that our character should be better. If we loved what Allah loves, we would love the believers and we would treat them better. We would know that we owe our families our love and allegiance and respect and kindness, right? The best of you, he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, is the best to their families or the best to their spouses. And I am the best to ahli. So it means that the best is the best in how they treat other people around them. So if we want it to be the best, then definitely it needed to be demonstrated in how you deal with your wife. Especially when you disagree with her or she disagrees with you. How you deal with your children, how when you fight with your neighbor, how you withhold your harm, and how you treat him in the best, reflecting the character of Islam. Not slogans, but I really mean like a character that you feel at that moment that Allah is watching you. Any word that I will say will be written for me or against me. If I assault him, I'll be in the wrong, and Allah will ask me about this. So your taqwa withholds and protects you from committing sinful acts and sinful deeds, protects you from bad character and bad manners. But if you look at us Muslims, how we deal with each other today in Muslim countries, non-Muslim countries, outside the masjid, inside the masjid, you'll understand that we don't really know what good character is. We don't know forgiveness. We don't know seeking excuses for people, lowering our voices, how to walk, how to talk, how to address other people. So there is a need to return to Islam, and Islam with character. Islam with akhlaq. It's not just simply, I'll pray and I'll fast and give zakah. See, the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith that we all know because we keep hearing and we keep repeating. He said, ﷺ, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ, I was only sent to complete the noblest of character. I was only sent, meaning like my only mission is to complete the best of character. As if to say, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, some of it was there. The other prophets brought it. But Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasallam took it to the end. He brought it in fulfillment, in completion. It was incomplete before him alayhi salatu wasallam until he came and he taught people how to live and how to act. And this hadith is very interesting because how do you understand the statement of the Prophet ﷺ when he says, my exclusive mission, as if the only thing I was sent to do is character. But you understand Islam has aqidah and has law. So character is what? And is it more important than aqidah and law? So there are two ways to understand this hadith, and I explain that in the book. One is a hyperbole, an exaggeration. It's a tool linguistically used to emphasize something. I was only sent here to do this, meaning one of my main missions. It doesn't mean my only mission, but one of my main missions, as if it's so important that when you see me doing it, you'll think I was not sent to do anything but this, because of how much I talk about it, right? Yani, similar to when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَا زَالَ جِبْرِيلُ يُوصِينِي بِالْجَارِ حَتَّى ظَنَنْتُ أَنَّهُ سَيُوَرِّثُ. He said, Jibreel ﷺ kept emphasizing the right of my neighbor until I thought he will make him an heir of mine, like family. Because who inherits from you? Family. So he kept emphasizing the right of the neighbor until I thought that eventually what is going to happen? That this is going to be, my neighbor is going to be part of my family. He'll inherit from me. So that is what to emphasize. So here, when he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, I was sent to complete the best of character, he is saying that this is my main or one of my main missions. So that's one way to understand it. Another way to understand it, which is also really important, is to understand character not only in terms of how you deal with other people, but al-khuluq is how you behave with Allah Azza wa Jal as well. So you have a khuluq with Allah, khuluq with yourself, khuluq with other people. Right? 3. So khuluq with Allah Azza wa Jal includes your aqidah and your ibadah. Khuluq with yourself, also character. Khuluq with people, ibadah and character. And this tells you that in Islam, all of these are connected. And it is our mistakes when we disconnect them. So isn't Salah supposed to teach you patience? Right? And isn't patience one of the best character? And losing patience, one of the worst character flaws that we have, especially in this age, when you're impatient with everyone around you. So you see people, right, fighting over a parking spot, right? And this is what Muslims, but also non-Muslims. So if you were patient and if you were kind and gracious, would you fight over a parking spot? Or fight with a vendor over prices, right? Or fight with a neighbor over something that they supposedly may have done or may have not? So you understand that Salah will give you patience. Zakah will give you generosity with money. Believing in Allah Azza wa Jal and in the last day will magnify the next life in your eye and diminish this dunya as well. And when this dunya is diminished, you're not going to compete for it so much. Even if you lose some of it, you will be gracious with that loss because it's not as important. And most of people's quarrels and fights are over the dunya. People fight over money, right? That's kind of the main reasons why people start conflicts. Nations, but also individuals. But if money is minimal in your eye, you're not going to be fighting so much over it. You can receive it easily, but also you could give it away easily. So you're not going to be bakhil, stingy and a miser. Look, Islam will teach you otherwise. You're not going to be possessive. You're not going to be self-centered. You're not going to be always thinking about yourself. Where is this going to come from? Because that's an important step in the acquiring of good character. You say to yourself, I want to be honest. Just like that. Is it going to happen? Well, no, it's not. So what is the practice that is going to help you be honest? So you remember when you were fasting, you used to observe what you say more closely because you don't want to ruin your fast. So there is a ibadah that makes you more aware of what you say and why you're saying it. So if you extend this and you believe that there is an angel that is writing everything that you say for you or against you, and everything will be read in a book of record, that the good deed that you say, one word that can elevate you in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal until you're in heaven or take you into the depths of hellfire, then it's easier to be honest. Right? So ibadah and good character are connected. And you lose one, you lose the other. And if you are a person who's worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal, but you notice that your character is bad, it means that there is not much emphasis in your ibadah on good character, and that's why you don't see this crossover from one to the other. Right? So salah is not really performed well, zakah is not performed consciously, fasting is not performed with deliberation and consciously. That's why you don't get a lot from it. But if you do, and you're aware of the connection, then you will get a lot more benefits from it. But what you see sometimes is this imbalance in how we live. We pray on time. That's what we're supposed to do, right? But when you set an appointment, you're late. Right? So but how is it that all of us are supposed to, when it is Salatul Jum'ah, we always come on time because we know that the Salah will begin at a particular minute and will end at that particular minute. We know that Fajr begins exactly now and then ends exactly then. So Islam orders your life for you to become punctual and on time all the time. So why is it that when Allah trains you to be like this here, you fail to take that lesson elsewhere? Right? So punctuality is in Islam, fasting, salah, zakah, all of this. But what you see sometimes is the imbalance I talked about. A person prays, but could lie, but could be late, right? But could backbite, but could be really rough with people, could feel very superior rather than feeling humble because of that salah, feel superior and proud because of it. So that's the imbalance. You could find those who are religious lacking manners, and because of that, those on the other side, they will say, well, I have good manners. I don't need to pray and fast because that's what's important. I'm a good person on the inside. I don't hurt anybody. And by that, they're putting down salah and the other laws that Allah Azza wa Jal loves. And we say, you need to maintain a balance between the two. The imperfection of some people that you see in the houses of Allah Azza wa Jal or outside the houses of Allah is not an excuse for you to say, I'm gonna overlook what Allah loves. The balance is, I'm gonna wear hijab and be modest, regardless of whether there are some sisters who wear the hijab and they're not. That does not affect me. But I'm gonna what? Do both. Wear hijab and be modest. Be an observant Muslim and be kind. Be considerate, be on time, right? Be generous, be forgiving. So all the things that you see other people doing and you admire, you adopt. And you add it to your life in addition to the other ibadah, and you allow both of them to support each other. Remembering that Allah Azza wa Jal loves those who are best in character. And we don't really follow the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam until, and this is another motivation for acquiring and maintaining good character, is that you don't really follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam until you pursue good character and you are a person of good character. So we know, you know how we emphasize follow the sunnah, follow the Quran, follow the sunnah. It's not only in physical practice of worship that we're saying you should follow the sunnah. The way that the Prophet looked or the way that the Prophet walked and all of these things. All these are important and fundamental in establishing a connection between you and him. But you have missed a big portion of the sunnah if you don't adopt the character of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. A big portion, because we just said that one of the main things he was sent to do is improve good character. If you ignore that, most of his message then, or a lot of his message will be ignored. So there is this hadith, and this is on page 98. He said, alayhi salatu wassalam, إِنَّ مِنْ أَحَبِّكُمْ إِلَيَّ وَأَقْرَبِكُمْ مِنِّي مَجْلِسًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَحَاسِنُكُمْ وَأَحَاسِنَكُمْ أَخْلَاقًا. He says, of those among you that I love the most and will be closest to me on the day of judgment, meaning they will be seated closest to me on the day of judgment, are those with the best of character. وَإِنَّ مِنْ أَبْغَضِكُمْ إِلَيَّ وَأَبْعَدِكُمْ مِنِّي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ الثَّرْثَارُونَ وَالْمُتَشَدِّقُونَ وَالْمُتَفَيْهِقُونَ. He says, and of those that I hate the most and will be furthest away from me on the day of judgment are those who babble, talk a lot. الثَّرْثَارُونَ وَالْمُتَشَدِّقُونَ, those who twist their tongues and mouths when they speak. وَالْمُتَفَيْقِهُونَ, and they asked the مُتَفَيْهِقُونَ, and they asked the Prophet ﷺ, who are those? He said, those are the arrogant. So the last category, he said ﷺ, are those with bad character. That those when they speak, they talk a lot just to dominate, right, the scene, just to show off. So they keep talking about themselves and about their achievements. And al-mutashaddiqun, they twist their tongues. It means that they pretend to know. I know this and I know this and I know that. And they make up words and they exaggerate pronunciations just to make it so as if they are intelligent and very profound in what they know. And when they speak with pride. Right? So all of these things are signs of bad character. How they speak reflects how they feel and how they view others. But he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, because of their bad character, where would they be? Furthest away from him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Who will be closest to him? Right? Because everybody who says, we love Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam and we want to be close to him. So you follow his sunnah. Part of following his sunnah is what? What is your akhlaq? Because it just makes sense that the Prophet ﷺ, if he would want someone to be close to him, it'd be a like-minded person. Like who would you be attracted to and you'd bring closest to you? A person who is like you, not opposite, but who's like you. That the Prophet ﷺ had the best of character. Who would he want to be closest to him? People who are like him. So that's why he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, these are the ones that I will love the most. Even if he never saw you, I would love the most and they will be the closest to me. So if you really say that I love Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, learn his character and how he behaved. And then incorporate that into your life. Don't say one thing and live a different claim. A different life. But live the life of Muhammad alayhi as-salatu was-salam. So, ibadah, again to emphasize, what does it do? Ibadah teaches you sincerity, and teaches you humility, and teaches you altruism. That is, you would favor, to be altruistic person, to favor others over yourself, to be content with what Allah had given you, to be hopeful that Allah will give you, to be forgiving because you expect Allah's forgiveness, to be merciful because this is how you get Allah's mercy. So here you see how even if you're not conscious, but you're just simply a good believer, practicing believer, if you're not conscious of akhlaq, you are gonna learn them because it's just embedded in Islam. But because we dissect Islam and separate it, and we take a little bit here and ignore the rest, we have failed to absorb all of the manners that Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to absorb. As we said also, when you worship Allah and you love Him more than the dunya, you're going to compete for the akhirah more than this life. And this will cause less friction and hatred and conflict on earth. Because we're not at war with each other over the dunya. You want more of this, you can take it. Because what I have is with Allah Azza wa Jal. What I want is with Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? That's what ibadah does. And there is a dua from, before we get to that, also of the virtue of husnul khuluq, good character. He said, alayhi salatu wassalam, ما من شيء يوضع في الميزان أثقل من حسن الخلق. He says nothing, this is on page 99, there is nothing that is heavier on the scale than good character. وإن صاحب حسن الخلق لا يبلغ به درجة صاحب الصوم والصلاة. And the person who has good character, because of it, he could reach the stage of the person who prays a lot and fasts a lot. Right? So one of the heaviest things in the scale, when the scale is going to weigh everything that we have done, is good character, your manners. And that if you have that, you could reach the level of a person who is engaged in ibadah often, and it's of the best ibadah. A lot of salah and a lot of fasting. Now you say to yourself, why is that? Why is that? It's because the person who's always in salah, he has to strive to pray, right? He's in jihad. It's not always easy. And the person who fasts a lot, he has to strive to fast. It's not always easy. And the person who has good character, he has to always be striving to maintain it and protect it and enhance it. Because everybody, especially in an age like ours, everybody around him is going to pull him down. Everybody around him is going to challenge his character, challenge his patience, challenge his forgiveness, challenge his kind heart, and try to take advantage of him, etc., etc. So if that person maintains it and survives that test and strives and actually improves his character, then he becomes among those who had strived for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah elevates him because of it. And the importance also of good character in spreading love, in earning the love of Allah Azza wa Jal, but also spreading love among the believers. He said, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, he said, "Man lanat kalimatuhu wajabat mahabbatuh." He says, the one whose words are soft and kind, his love is a necessity. Meaning that you find it necessary within yourself, when someone is kind to you, to love him. Right? When someone is kind, even if they are non-Muslim. Right? You're not even thinking about it, you're not even conscious of it, you're not thinking to yourself, I should love them or not love them. But somebody is kind to you, what do you feel? Warm feelings towards them. And if he is kinder and kinder, and softer, and caring and merciful, you will be completely in love with that person. So it's not something that you could push or you could resist. So this is a way for people to love each other. And if there is some tension between you and someone, and you want to remove that tension, remove that friction, be nice to them. Be nice to them. And I know I'm simplifying. I know it's not always easy, but it's an idea and it's an advice. Be nice to them. Because when you're nice to them, that will melt away all of those, what have been accumulating, those accumulations over time. It will take it away, time by time. Because you can't help it. Allah Azza wa Jal had made it a fitrah in people's hearts, that He will like those who are nice and well-mannered. And also He said, alayhi salatu wassalam, عن أكثر ما يدخل الناس الجنة. He says, what is the thing that most admits people to Jannah? So, the thing that most admits people to Jannah. And he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, قال تقوى الله وحسن الخلق. Having taqwa of Allah and good character. That the thing that will put you in Jannah the most is what? He said these two. Taqwa, in dealing with Allah Azza wa Jal, and of course that extends to people, but taqwa and good character. And then they asked him, well, what about the thing that puts people most in hellfire? He said, al-famu wal-farj. Is the mouth and the private parts. And the mouth, right? You understand that. That's the key to good or bad character. How do people relate to you first and most? Through your mouth. So if you're able to protect people from your mouth, and in fact turn your mouth into a tool for good rather than a tool for bad, and you safeguard your private parts, Allah Azza wa Jal will guarantee Jannah for you, because that is the guarantee of Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. Right? And it seems simple enough, right? Safeguard your private parts, yani no haram. And also protect people from your mouth. Don't say haram things that upset Allah or upset people, right? That go against Allah Azza wa Jal. And if that's the case, the Prophet ﷺ said, I guarantee Jannah for him. So good character takes you to Jannah. You may say to yourself, I'm not, I don't have the strength to pray so much or fast so much. I can't go to Hajj those many times. I can't give a lot of money. But maybe Allah Azza wa Jalla had given you the treasure trove of being a person of good character. Then you take advantage of that, because that could be your path to Jannah. Another person, their path could be salah. Another person, their path could be fasting. Another person, it could be sadaqah. And maybe one of us, or some of us, it could be good character. So, so now the dua that I wanted to talk to you about is, there's an incident when Darda radiyallahu anha, she said that Abu Darda, the Sahabi radiyallahu anhu, he spent the whole night praying, or portion of the night praying. فَجَعَلَ يَبْكِي وَيَقُولُ. So when he was praying and making dua, he is crying and he is saying, Allahumma ahsanta khalqi fa ahsin khuluqi. Ya Allah, you beautified my creation, so beautify my character. That's his dua. The whole night he's saying, Ya Allah, you beautified my physical creation, so beautify my character. So in the morning she said, Abu Darda, the whole night this is your entire dua. Why so? He says, Ya Darda. He says, a Muslim, his character would improve and be beautiful until it will put him in Jannah. And his character would worsen and become ugly until it puts him in hellfire. Right? His character could be so good and keep improving until it puts him in Jannah. And the opposite. So a hadith, and it's not mentioned here, where a woman was mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ. There is a woman who prays and at night, and she fasts. But in the morning, when she wakes up, she hurts all of her neighbors with her tongue. She curses this person and that person, meaning that she engages in sin, but she does this ibadah as well. He says she's in hellfire. Right? He says she's in hellfire. So imagine, subhanallah, that Allah Azza wa Jal could give you the good fortune of praying. And how many people do that at night? And fasting, and how many people do that? But you could ruin all of with bad character, with how you mistreat people around you. And because you don't think it is relevant, when you arrive on the Day of Judgment, you'll find out that you're bankrupt. And all of your hasanat have been given to somebody else. And then it was mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ, a woman who is very moderate in her ibadah, in her salah, and moderate in her fasting. But she is very kind to her neighbors and families and people around her. And he said she's in heaven. So this is what Allah Azza wa Jal wants from you. Not an imbalance where on the one hand, a lot of ibadah, but that you hurt people. Or on the other hand, the opposite of it, you say, I'm a person of great character, but you neglect your worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. Both of these are wrong. And both of these are incomplete. Until you fulfill Allah's right, and through that, because of it, you fulfill people's right. So this is a dua that a person can adopt. And in fact, it is a dua of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma kama hassanta khalqi fahassin khuluqi. Because I know somebody is going to ask me this. It's great to have good character. How do we have it? Because one of them is dua, and one of them is to recite this dua. Ya Allah Azza wa Jal, you have beautified me. And you don't need to be a beauty queen to say this, right? Do you? No. You just need to simply look at yourself and praise Allah Azza wa Jal for the fact that you have eyes and you have ears and you have a nose and you're well proportioned, alhamdulillah. And that is beautiful, right? And then you say, Ya Allah Azza wa Jal, you made this, the exterior, beautiful. But then say to yourself, how about the interior? There are two copies of ourselves, right? There's a copy that is the exterior copy that you show everybody. That's what we see from you. This is your dress. This is how you combed your hair. This is how you walk. This is how you talk in front of us. Okay? So that's the exterior copy. But there's an interior copy that is, this is what you truly believe. This is who you truly are. This is what you truly think. This is what you really want to do. Not what you tell us, but what you really want to do. So, without any pretense, you're asking Allah Azza wa Jal, here is my physical copy, and it's beautiful. But Ya Allah, you could see beyond it. So make what is on the inside beautiful, as you made what's on the outside beautiful. And we tend to polish ourselves on the outside all the time. And if there is a blemish, right, here and there, we kind of eradicate it, we cover it up because we don't want to see or be seen with any imperfection. Well, there are a lot of imperfections on the inside when it comes to our character. Do I accept people's excuses? Do I think of excuses for them when they commit a wrong? Or do I rush to judgment and bad judgment? He must be terrible. He must be a liar. He must be a thief. So you think the worst of thoughts of people before you think of excuses for them. Are you envious? Or when you notice envy, you plead with Allah Azza wa Jal and you make dua for that person so that Allah will remove that terrible trait from your heart. Because if you don't do this, it indicates that you love the dunya and you love it for yourself, not for your brother. And you hate Allah's judgment that He had given him something but not you. But if you surrender to Allah in Iman and to His destiny and ask Allah Azza wa Jal to rid you of that terrible trait, then envy will leave you, jealousy will leave, and you will wish the best for your brother. And it becomes easier to wish for them exactly the same thing that you wish for yourself. I want health for myself. I want everybody to be healthy. Why would I be happy if somebody is sick? Because I understand what it means to be sick, or to be poor, or to be suffering, or to be under pressure, whatever type of pressure it may be. So where is this good character going to come from? So Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, and he takes this from the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. It comes from Allah Azza wa Jal. So quickly, inshallah, I just want to highlight why Allah Azza wa Jal loves good character. And then I'll talk about how to acquire good character with a little bit of detail, inshallah. So why is it that Allah Azza wa Jal loves good character? Because it is through the best of manners that humanity can prosper, that humanity will live well. If I'm honest and you're honest, then we will treat each other well. If you are sincere and I'm sincere, if you are forgiving and I'm forgiving, so if Allah Azza wa Jal wants humanity to be blessed and to be safe, what is the vehicle that is going to deliver all of these blessings? It is good character. But if people have the worst of character, they'll be killing each other, stealing from each other. Everybody would be suffering. So since Allah loves the well-being of the believers and of humanity at large, Allah Azza wa Jal loves good character because of it. So this is one reason. And good character means ihsan. Ihsan does not mean I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me. That's transactional. This is selling and buying. Right? I'll be good to you as much as you're good to me. And if not, then bad. That's not husnul khuluq. He said, alayhi salatu wassalam, لَيْسَ الْوَاصِلُ بِالْمُكَافِئِ. Right? He said about silatul rahim, right? Connecting with your family and being nice to them. He says, the one who repays their kindness exactly is not one who's practicing silatul rahim. But this is one, he's what's repaying what he received. They visited, so I'm going to visit. They called, so I'm going to call. And though this is still falls under silatul rahim, still falls, and it's still a good deed, but he's saying, alayhi salatu wasalam, that's not the thing that we're asking people to do. We're not pushing Muslims to simply do what? I'll do if you do. I'll move if you move. And if not, I won't. وَلَكِنَّ الْوَاصِلْ الَّذِي يَصِلُ مَنْ قَطَعَهُ. You connect with those who disconnect with you. Meaning, they don't often call, but you call. They don't often visit, but you visit. They don't ask much, but you ask. And then you say, why am I doing this? Why am I lowering myself? And are they better than me? He says, no, you're doing this Lillah Azza wa Jal, for Allah Azza wa Jal. Because Allah loves it, and you cement family relationships because of it, and when you're doing it, you don't expect anything back from them. You tell me this is hard. I tell you, yes, it is not easy. But if your Iman is strong, you'll find it easier to do this. So work on your Iman so that you could sacrifice for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Because people will say, my honor, my dignity, I will never lower myself to them and this and that. But if a person has Iman, they will humble themselves to Allah Azza wa Jal, and they will not feel that they've did that anything harmful to themselves. Because when they're doing it, it's as if they're seeing Allah Azza wa Jal seeing them. And that makes it easier. So, do more than they do, give more than what they give. And even if society around you, right, is swimming in bad character, even if everybody is lying, that is never a justification for you to say, since they're doing it, I'm going to do it as well. Because they're not your teachers. People around you are not your teacher. Who is your teacher? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? So even if you need to go and jump through history to think of a role model, do it. But you think, well, everybody's cutting the line, so I'm going to cut the line as well. Everybody lies in these applications, so I will lie as well. We say no. You hold yourself to a higher standard, and remember that having good character is not easy, especially these days. So you are in jihad, and when you're doing jihad, you're not going to be brought down by the foolishness of those around you. Let 99% of people sin. You be among the 1% who do not. And again, not because of pride. Now I'm not telling you see yourself as better. But in this particular act, see yourself as better and say, I'm better than imitating the masses. Better than imitating what is popular. So you have to resist what is popular and what is dominant and do what is right, even if it is inconvenient, even if you're alone. And that is the thing that grants you the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jalla and elevation in the Akhirah. So how and why Allah Azza wa Jalla also loves good character? Because you're constantly striving to please Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a constant state of jihad with small things and with bad things. And we'll see examples of small acts of good character that Allah Azza wa Jalla loves. Because you may say to yourself, well, where do I begin? You begin with whatever thing that is closest to you and easiest to do. And you can build on it. The small becomes bigger, bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal, with time. So, how to acquire good character? Some, inshallah, hints. The Prophet ﷺ said, لأجشي, that's hard to say, عبد القيس, إن فيك خلتين يحبهم الله عز وجل. He says, you have two qualities that Allah Azza wa Jal loves. And he said, رضي الله عنه, what are these? He says, الحلم والحياء, forbearance and haya. You know what haya is, to be shy. So forbearance and haya. So he said, أقديما كان في أم حديثا. He says, was this something that I had for a long time, meaning born with, or this is something new? He says, no, you had them for a long time. So this tells you that qualities and character can be divided into two. One that you're born with and one that you need to acquire. So good qualities are of two types. And they're different from one to the other. One are innate, meaning you're born with it. Some people are more patient than others, naturally. Right? Just as some people are more physically strong than others, naturally. Right? So there's some innate qualities in this person. He said what? He's a more patient person. And he's also has haya. Some people need to acquire these things and work on it. And also bad qualities are innate and acquired. Some people are suspicious by nature, stubborn by nature, angry by nature, right? From very young age, you could see that they have these qualities in them. That is your test and that is your struggle. Because Allah said what? You're going to be struggling with this. But you're going to be struggling with that. So the innate bad needs what? Jihad for you to be able to overcome it. Control your anger, control your suspicion, control your impatience. Strive against all of this. And there is an innate acquired that comes from company around you or bad habits that you adopt. These also you need to save and protect yourself from. On the good side, there is innate good. So maybe Allah Azza wa Jal had blessed you the fact that you love honesty. From a very young age, you don't really like to lie. If you don't protect it, first of all, right, if Allah had given that to you, thank Allah for it. Because it's a pure gift. You didn't do anything to earn it. Second, you need to preserve it. Because you could lose it. You could be someone who loves to say the truth, but then you surrender to temptation and you start to lie. You could be someone who used to be patient, and then you could lose that patience. You could be someone, as you could see it today, who has haya, shyness. I'll never show my body. I'll never dance in front of a camera. I'll never, do this and that. But then gradually you start to do this. Because all the people that you see doing what they're doing, they weren't born like this, right? But they shifted slowly until they adopted these qualities. So you could lose the good that Allah had given to you. So you thank Allah for it and you preserve it and you enhance it. And then you look at the things that you need to have and work on acquiring them. So you find yourself that you lack patience, work on that. You find yourself that you lie, work on that. You find yourself that you're looking, when you go into a people's home or passing by their homes and the curtain is opened and you start looking inside to see what and who, then that's spying. You say, no, this is haram, I shouldn't be doing this. So you learn to lower your eyes. You find yourself talking and gossiping about people, whether you know this is true or not, then you hold yourself back and you say, this is haram and I shouldn't. So we're always in this struggle and even flux between the good and the bad, But we need to maintain that struggle and never surrender to the fact that I'm bad, so I'm always going to be bad. Or I'm born angry and I'll always be angry and never be able to control my anger. What kind of declaration is this? As if as a person is saying, that's it, I'm going to hellfire, that's it. No, work on yourself. Let Allah Azza wa Jal see from you that you actually want to change, because if that's the case, who knows, maybe Allah will bring that change. You can't say, I'm a suspicious person by nature. I can't. And that will cause you divorce after divorce. You mean that there is no treatment for this at all? Try. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal. Push yourself. Ask others, how could you overcome such suspicion and these feelings? And maybe there's a way. But you haven't found it because you didn't ask, right? So innate qualities, acquired qualities, we talked about that. No. And if you have something bad in you, or you want to acquire something good, start small, right? Set a plan for yourself and you say, start small. So if you find yourself talking about things you're not supposed to talk about, hold yourself responsible after each conversation that you have. You say, why did I talk about this and that? Next time when I meet so-and-so, I'll make sure not to open this topic and not to go into this topic, not to talk about this person. Or if I'm not sure of something, I'm not going to talk about it. And so the more that you review and correct and review and correct, you'll find yourself actually restraining your tongue. A person could, simply say to themselves, you know what, for the next 10 minutes, I will not say anything except Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam or the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, just to teach my tongue to be quiet. You could do this, right? Some of the Salaf, and it's just an idea, they would put a pebble in his mouth just to remind him not to talk. That's a method of control, right? And once the tongue gets used to it, you don't need that pebble anymore. So there are ways for you to start acquiring good character, right? Patience, right? Just teach yourself when you're hungry, right? Not starving, but hungry, delay food for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. When you have a craving for something, teach yourself, I'm going to wait 10, 15 minutes before I fulfill that craving. When you want to see your phone, right? You can't wait until to check your phone. You put it aside and say, no, I will discipline myself to stay half hour away from it. Because that teaches you patience. And you will reap all the benefits of what you're doing. You think it is small, but you will see the benefits of all of that. But there are ways, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. So inshallah, I'll just share with you, just very briefly, some of the good characters in the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ talked about. So one here, he said ﷺ, إِنَّ مِنَ الْغَيْرَةِ مَا يُحِبُّ اللَّهُ وَمِنْهَا مَا يُبْغِضُ. He says there is jealousy that Allah loves and jealousy that Allah hates. The jealousy that Allah loves is jealousy when there is something inappropriate happening. And the jealousy that Allah hates is a jealousy that is without reason. Okay? الْغَيْرَةُ فِي غَيْرِ الرِّيبَةِ. So here is an example of something that a person needs to acquire and need to have, but also could mismanage or misapply. That is jealousy that Allah Azza wa Jal loves is what? When you see something wrong and you're jealous because of it. You see Allah's commands being broken and you feel jealous. You feel, for instance, as Muslim women not dressed properly and you feel jealous. Or you find your wife and your daughters not dressed properly and you tell them to cover up because you're jealous. That is jealousy that is good or bad? That's a good type of jealousy because there's something wrong and you feel jealous. But a bad type of jealousy is to be suspicious for no reason. Oh, well, you're talking to someone on the phone, right? It's another man, right? And there's no reason. So you're jealous, but it's because of bad thoughts and suspicion. So subhanAllah, here Islam really teaches you the difference between right and wrong thinking, right and wrong behavior, the thing that can maintain a family or break it. And both of them are called ghayra. Both of them are called jealousy. But without Allah Azza wa Jalla and His Prophet ﷺ, how would you know the difference between the two? So good jealousy is good character. Without it, a person will be an irresponsible husband, right? Or an irresponsible wife. Bad jealousy damages and breaks a family. And the difference, as we said, between them is not so apparent to people. Another hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, he says, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تفرغ من دلوك في إناء المستسقي. He says, do not look down on any good deed that you can perform, even if you were to empty from your bucket for a seeker of water, that you have a bucket of water, and another has an empty bucket. And if the only thing is that you could find to do is just to empty some of the water that you have into their bucket, he says, even that small thing is valuable because it is ma'roof. Because it pleases Allah Azza wa Jal, and you're benefiting and helping others. And he said, وَلَوْ أَن تُكَلِّمَ أَخَاكَ وَوَجْهُكَ إِلَيْهِ مُنْبَسِطٌ. He said, even if you're just talking to your brother and you're smiling while you are talking to him. He says, something as simple as this, don't look down on it. Isn't this good character? But you're doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's what puts you in Jannah. So you see, always there's a link between the two. You want to be pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jal, watch out how you are with other people and how you talk to them and how you help them, or the lack of all of this. It tells you how you are with Allah Azza wa Jal, right? وَإِيَّاكَ وَتَسْبِيلَ الْإِزَارِ فَإِنَّهُ مِنَ الْخُيَلَاءِ وَالْخُيَلَاءُ لَا يُحِبُّهَا اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. He said, alayhi salatu wassalam, and do not lower your garment, meaning drag your garment. This is especially for males. Do not lower your garment, meaning below your ankles, because it is prideful. And Allah does not like pride. Okay? So men are supposed to have their clothes above their ankles, but also take the lesson from it. Don't be prideful. Allah doesn't like it. So if you wear anything, it doesn't have to be something that you drag, but something very expensive, and it makes you think that you're better because of it, then that is pride that has entered your heart, and Allah doesn't like it. Take this off until such a time where you can wear it without pride. Right? Can you see how people, how sometimes you buy very expensive things, brand, and when you wear them, or when you ride that thing, it causes you pride and arrogance. That is corrupting. And it doesn't really stop there, because if you are so proud, if you ask yourself, why is it that people who are very rich and riding these expensive cars so rude to people around them and so careless when it comes to laws and people's feelings and property? Why is it? Is because they think that they are what? Better. Otherwise, you wouldn't look and treat people like that. You think that you're better. You've learned that you're better. But if not, if you're humble, you're never going to be acting like that. So that's what he said. And that's another character. إِيَّاكَ وَالْخُيَلَاء. Beware of pride. And here, this one is also, it's beautiful. وَإِنِ امْرُؤٌ سَبَّكَ بما يعلم فيك فلا تسبه بما تعلم فيه فإن أجره لك ووباله على من قاله. He said, if someone insults you using things that he knows about you, do not go back and insult him using things that you know about him, because the reward will be yours and the sin will be his. And again, look at how noble Islam wants you to be. Somebody insults you, and he knows some secrets about you, things that other people don't know. And you know things about him that other people don't know. So when he exposes you these insults, and he says, oh yeah, remember when you did this, to defame you. Remember this? Your reaction and my reaction would be to do what? To expose him as he exposed us. To insult him exactly as how he insulted us. To broadcast his secrets exactly as he did ours. But he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, no, you should be better. You should be better. If he sinks so low that he exposes your secrets, he insults you with things that he knows will hurt you, don't go back and do the same to him. Restrain yourself and be better and higher. And think of yourself on the day of judgment when Allah rewards you for that exchange and punishes him for it. And that makes being patient and quiet easy. And you become strong because of it. But where did that strength come from? An iman in Allah Azza wa Jal, that there is a day of judgment and there is a compensation. And you will feel fully in control after. You have the keys now of the conversation. He doesn't. You could escalate it or it could die. And you have the power. And that's the power that comes with patience. Right? And finally here, he says a companion once asked the Prophet ﷺ for advice. And the Prophet told him, لا تسبن أحدا. He says, O Prophet of Allah, give me advice. He says, don't insult anyone. Don't curse. Don't verbally attack anyone. And the beautiful thing here is how he applied it. He said, رضي الله عنه, فما سببت بعده حرا ولا عبدا ولا بعيرا ولا شاة. I did not insult after him, after that exchange with the Prophet ﷺ, a free man, or a slave, or a camel, or a sheep. Right? Even animals, if he would see a camel, or hurt some sheep, and he's upset with them, and he could insult them, and they're not going to understand what he's saying. But he upheld the advice of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, don't insult anyone. He says, not a thing. It's not going to come out of my mouth, even for an animal. Because if you save yourself from insulting an animal, you're not going to insult a human being. And you save yourself from insulting a kafir, you're not going to insult a believer. And you save yourself from insulting a believer who is a non-relative, you're not going to insult a believer who is also a relative and very close to you. And if you guarded your tongue like that, you'll guard your tongue so that it doesn't say something that upsets Allah Azza wa Jal. So that is the akhlaq and the character of Islam. Wallahu a'lam. So we'll stop here inshallah, and let me know if you have questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Okay. Anything on the men's side? Sister side? Okay. So I'll give you a minute inshallah to think of anything you want to ask. So nothing on this end? Okay. And okay. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. So can eating with a spoon be considered as equivalent to eating with hands? Because some people eat with hands in disgusting ways and say it is sunnah. I think it's time. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were no spoons, so he used his hands, or the word hands. Please correct me if I'm wrong. There is some food where you would say it might be easier to use a spoon, right? And yes, you're right that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were no spoons, right? Some people point out the fact that eating with your hands is closer to the fitrah, right? It's unpretentious. Definitely, for instance, there are things that are better eating with hands rather than with utensils. But if you're a person who doesn't know how to use his hands eating, right? Especially if you're eating something like rice and what have you that gets scattered and wasted, using a spoon is fine as well. And we're not going to say that using a spoon is preferable, right? It just depends on the person and depends on the food. So if a person feels more connected and closer to nature and closer to the sunnah while using his hand, and the food that he's using is appropriate to the tool that he's using, then we say, why not? Then why say, why not? If a person doesn't know how to use his hands, as again, especially it's most difficult with rice for a lot of people. So if you don't know, you know how to use your hands, then use utensils, inshallah. Use a spoon or what have you. And the use of spoons and other utensils doesn't contradict the sunnah, right? Doesn't contradict the sunnah. Use what is easy for you, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. But what I know is from the sunnah is licking your fingers, right, after you eat, right? So if you see someone who's doing it, right, are you going to say it's disgusting? Huh? No. So get used to it. Right? So get used to it, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if you eat by hand, don't wash them until you lick your fingers. Why? Because you do not know where the barakah lies. So when you're eating, right, the food that you have has barakah in it. You don't know. You may have touched it. And it is on your fingers. So it means lick your fingers, right? And if you've never done it, you'll say, ooh, when that's disgusting. But if you do it once, twice, and you know what? It's normal. So sometimes I think we kind of set to ourselves standards of etiquette, just that have more to do with upbringing and maybe personal preferences. I think if you just get used to something else, you'll start seeing it differently. Wallahu a'lam. Right? Okay, there's one question here. Is this the reason why Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's scale is heavier than the entire ummah, because he has soft character? It's because of his Iman. So the Abu Bakr's Iman is equivalent to the Iman of the rest of the ummah, or he on the scale is heavier than the rest of the ummah, excluding of course the Prophet ﷺ, because he is as-Siddiq. And as-Siddiq is because he believed in it so much and is settled in his heart so much that there is no room in it for doubt more than anybody else. Right? It mixed with his bone, with his blood, with his meat. So Islam and Iman was so entrenched in his heart more than anyone else that he is the heaviest on the scale. That's why. And a product of that is how he acted. Radiallahu anhu. A product of it is that how soft he was. When he reads the Quran, he cries. He was soft with people. And by the way, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu wasn't soft all the time. Abu Bakr, when he got angry, he got angry. Right? So I want us to understand this in balance. So if you see a person today who sometimes gets angry, you say, oh, you violated the sunnah. No, even Umar radiallahu anhu, when they were in that incident, when they were trying to discuss and decide who's going to be a khalifa, and Umar wanted to speak, and he said, I had prepared things to say. But he was referring to Abu Bakr, and he says, وَكُنْتُ أُدَارِ فِيهِ حِدَّةً فِيهِ. It says, and I used to try to manage an anger he had. Like Abu Bakr would be soft, but if he got angry, he got angry. Right? So he wasn't, so that we understand everybody right in proper proportion. The thing that made him incredible, radiallahu anhu, was his Iman. And as I said, that yielded the character of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and yielded the character of Umar and Uthman and Ali. Is because of their Iman, then people, when they saw them, right, they said, these are better than the disciples of Jesus Christ that we read about in the Bible. We read about them, right? It's like stories had been made about them, but these people that we see are better than them. So you know very well, right? The greatest inviter to Islam is how you act and how you behave. Not what you say. Believe in Islam because this, yes. But they want to also see how you live and how you act. So if you want to be a da'iyah, a person who calls to Islam, the greatest invitation is what? How you behave and how you live. It says, is it haram to wear pants that touch all the way to the heel? It's preferable and better that they would be above, so they don't touch it for men. For women, no. That doesn't apply to them, right? Because they need to cover that area. But for men, because it is said that لا حظ للأعقاب, as if I remember it right, that ankles have no portion of your garment. Right? It should be slightly above them. Then that, inshallah, should be fine. Some say that only way of dealing with tough character who are hardened is speaking in a language they understand, in a hardened way too. How to deal with this correctly? So, I mean, just do or think of Musa alayhi salam, how he started to speak with Pharaoh and how he ultimately spoke to him. So Allah Azza wa Jal tells him, فَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. So when they started their da'wah to Pharaoh, Allah Azza wa Jal sent to Musa and Harun alayhim salam, speak softly to them. Perhaps they will remember, okay, or return to Allah Azza wa Jal. So if a person is hardened and they're tough and aggressive, you don't become or you don't begin da'wah to them or a conversation aggressively just because they're aggressive. You begin softly and leniently. And you work your way up when you find out that that softness is misplaced. So you try and it fails, and you try and it fails, like Musa did with Pharaoh, and you try and it fails. And then you up, right, the aggressiveness of the conversation or the firmness of the conversation until eventually he tells him, وَإِنِّي لَأَظُنُّكَ يَا فِرْعَوْنُ مَثْبُورًا. And I think, Ya Fir'aun, you're going to be destroyed. So he reached that point, but it took a while between the leniency in the beginning and the end of it. Right? Yeah. The garment. With what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that. What is the relationship? So the Prophet maybe he didn't explain, but you could maybe figure that when people of the past and even in the present, when they would lengthen their garments and they would drag them, that's an indication of richness and opulence and status. So kings would do this. They would drag things behind them, right? So whether we understand it or not, right? We have the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, so I don't need to wrestle with it, right? But he tells us, right? It is from khuyala. So if perhaps there is a sensible, logical, physical reason that we could see, or maybe that if a person applies it, Allah takes arrogance away from their heart, and if he doesn't, Allah afflicts them with arrogance. So I'm content with the hadith being as it is. Wallahu a'lam. Wa alaikum salam. Naam. Yes. So Naam. So the question of the brother here is that the Prophet ﷺ, was in Jannah and he saw a big palace and he wanted to enter it. And then he inquired, whose palace is this? And they said, this is the palace of Umar. So they said, فَذَكَرْتُ غِيرَتَكَ. So he says, I remembered your jealousy, so I did not enter the palace. Why? He said, I remembered your jealousy because inside that palace, who could there be? The women of paradise that belonged to Umar radiallahu anhu, al-hur al-ain. So he says, I remembered your jealousy, so I did not go inside the palace. And inside the palace. So the Prophet, so Umar radiallahu anhu said, would I be jealous from you, O Prophet of Allah? Right? So that's the incident that you're talking about. Does it make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Explain that. Security, the difference between security and jealousy. Insecurity and jealousy. So jealousy, when you find something wrong, like there's evidence, is visible, discernible, and that moves you to act. Insecurity is when you surrender to suspicion. Somebody must be cheating on me. Somebody must be doing this, that behind me. There is no evidence for it. So you surrender to these doubts. And once you believe them, you start to act based on them. So you start to spy and investigate and assume and then accuse because you believed all of these things. That's an insecurity that is based on false assumptions and thoughts. Good jealousy is a jealousy where you see something wrong, or this is going to lead to something wrong, and is very tangible and very sensible, and you say, no, stop. You can't talk, so softly, right? Because other people could listen to this and be tempted by it. So that's something that is reasonable. But a person who just bases it on, his imagination, that is how I do define insecurity. And it could come also from past bad experiences as well. So the guy the person extends it into other relationships as well. And it's important to remember that people are different. So if you've been betrayed, it doesn't mean that you're going to be betrayed again, right? So you have to heal from that yourself. Allah. So we're good? Still one? طيب. I don't know if there's still one more. Okay, last one. What steps can one take to correct their negative character of behavior? What we talked about. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect you from it, identify it, then distance yourself from it, distance yourself from people who behave like that. Find why were you doing this? What is the thing that motivates it, escalates it? Distance yourself from it. Talk to people who have struggled with this and were able to overcome it, or talk to a person who is a sheikh, an imam, or a knowledgeable person about this particular thing. How do I overcome this particular thing? And hopefully, inshallah, you will find answers. And something also that I forgot to mention, the biographies and the lives of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions and the righteous scholars who had passed away is an incredible resource for improving character and identifying bad ones. Because you will see how they've lived, and that will inspire you, and how they avoided bad things, included character, and that will inspire you as well. So if you want to read something uplifting, read their life stories, inshallah. And we'll stop here. Barakallahu feekum. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik.